Welcome, Andreas Brandis. Thanks for doing this. We're still in the same location at Siggy's house gallery with some new paintings, and I have a new shirt. just want to,
always
just want
new
to point this
shirts.
out. Surrounded by all these amazing pieces of art, that I have a new shirt.
Yeah.
That's great. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
And thanks for the invitation. So
You. Thanks for doing this.
yeah, I'm fine. It's July now, so
Yeah.
half the year's over, and it was a quite intense year so far. So we just moved the office. The team is growing, and
Yeah.
it's intense but very nice time. So
Very nice time. And a concert tonight here.
absolutely
Something to look forward
with you.
with you. Yeah. I was waiting for that. Okay, but we start with the music. I always ask my guests to select two pieces of music. You selected at least 8 pieces of music, which I tried to limit, but then I realized that this is really interesting selection and a very wide selection of music. So we'll go through your selection. And number 1 was Brahms Clarinet Quintet, Opus 115. Not many people say that I grew up with a clarinet quintet, but you wrote me that you grew up with this piece. So could you open this up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I come from a family with a very classical music background.
Yeah.
And my father was a very good amateur cellist. And so it was common that we had mainly string quartet evenings at home.
Oh.
And so I'm the youngest of 5 siblings.
Yeah.
And I was always allowed to stay while they were playing until I fall asleep. So I was most of the time lying on the back of the sofa, listening while lying there.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, I fall asleep. And after the string quartet evening, my father would take me to my bed.
Wow. What a
And-
nice way to fall asleep. Listen to chamber music. Wow.
Yeah, somehow the Brahms clarinet quintet was one of the favorite pieces of my mother.
Yeah.
And she always says that I already listened to it while I was in her belly. So it has a certain meaning to me, and it's a beautiful piece of music for sure.
It is. And so is Mozart's clarinet quintet, which, I mean, because you had that lineup at your house, so maybe they played the Mozart piece at
As
some
well.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the Truth Quintet, of course, and stuff like that. So the basis was mainly string quartet, but from time to time they invited other guests like clarinet, or for the Truth you need, of course, double bass and stuff like that.
Yeah. And your first instrument was violin.
Yes, it was violin. It was not really, I mean, I was not forced to it at all. But of course, you always orientate to what your siblings are doing, right?
Yeah.
And so the majority of them played violin. Just one, my second oldest brother, chose the cello.
Okay.
And so it felt natural, like someone is doing his driving license. It felt like, okay, when you're turning 6, you start your violin lesson.
Yes, that's right.
It felt like a natural thing that you do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I played violin for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Like school orchestra and stuff like that.
Also, Arthur Rubinstein's first instrument was violin, and he had a special way telling his parents that he doesn't want to continue. He took the violin and smashed it on the table. But when did you stop the violin?
So, I mean, I was very attracted by everything which was percussive.
Yeah.
And of course, later on, my parents said, yeah, retrospectively, we already knew when you were a very little child that you were into drums, but they never came to the conclusion that this might be an instrument to learn. So I had to discover it on my own. And I started with like hand drums and stuff, all the things you can just learn on your own.
Okay.
And then my biggest wish was to have a teacher for real drum set. And it took me a while because my father was always like, if you started something, you should do it for a while. So if you learn a second instrument, you should continue the violin. And my first lessons I only got when I turned 14 with the drums. And then it was like letting air into a vacuum. So it really started out very fast. When I turned 16, I was on my first concert journey to Moscow. And I started out with drum set, popular drumming and jazz. And then later down the road, I also got lessons in orchestral percussion, like timpani, mallets, and all that. And at a certain point, that was so time-consuming that I had to stop violin. It was too much.
But you were seriously on your way to be a professional musician. That sounds like it. Violin, percussion, drums.
I mean, I only knew that I'm really in love with drums and everything related to it. And that I expressed my wish to become a professional musician was perhaps around 18. But I took it very seriously. Like, I mean, you might know that from your own career as well. I mean, everyone else is going to summer camps and vacation, etc., and you're practicing or you're going to workshops or to youth orchestras and stuff. So you spend all your childhood into the instrument. And I didn't know something else which I would love to do more instead than doing that as a profession. That was, and in the beginning, I was not clearly decided if it could be classical percussion or the improvised world. But around 18, it was pretty clear that for the top orchestras, I started too late with the orchestral percussion. And I also felt that I want the freedom of expressing myself in different genres and stuff. So
and now you're operating with all these genres in a different way. Okay, Elvin Jones, your second selection. Dear John C, obviously John Coltrane. Really good track. I haven't heard this until now. I think Hank Jones on piano. Sounds like
Charlie Mariano. So it's interesting. So my oldest brother is 11 years older than me, and he went to the US while he was studying. And he brought me this as a present from his trip to the US, and I had no clue about jazz and improvised world so far. So I think I was 13 or something like that. And it's beautiful because it's somehow, I mean, it's modern jazz. It's not at all reflecting the late John Coltrane's world, but still it's with Elvin and a lot of fellows of John Coltrane. I think it was a very nice entry into the jazz chamber music world somehow. Without playing standards, but still having a more or less open modern jazz approach. And it was important for me.
I was listening this last night. Short solos on this one. The third solo is starting, and that's when 2 minutes have passed. So they're only playing like very short solos. I think there was a producer on the studio saying that, guys.
Sorry guys.
Let's keep it real.
And I think the whole idea came from Elvin, and Elvin is playing. I mean, when you know Elvin, it's for his way of playing quite focused and straight ahead. So,
the third selection, Guns N' Roses. Now we're talking. Maybe you don't know that one of the influences for Guns N' Roses was a Finnish band, Hanoi Rocks.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Hano Rocks was a big influence for Mötley Crüe and Guns N' Roses. They have said it openly. These crazy Finnish guys who went to Los Angeles, early '80s. But yeah, wow, this is Brahms, Elvin Jones, Guns N' Roses. So you're really wide.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
scope.
But this is the time that you were banging the set.
Yeah, and Guns N' Roses, I mean, it was a very important band for not only for me but all my friends as well. So we had like a school band when we were around 12, 13-ish.
Yeah.
And the Big Pigs.
The Big Pigs.
Yeah, that was the name of the band. And only drums was left, more or less.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, my friends were telling me, yeah, you know what? I mean, all of us, we have lessons in the instrument we're playing.
Yeah.
And you're the only one just, learning by yourself without teachers, etc. That's perhaps not too good to when you want to grow as a band and develop. And I've felt really bad about that. And and they told me when we go further and the band becomes more popular, perhaps you can change and be the manager of the band instead, because you don't learn the instrument.
Oh God!
And I mean, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
So beginning of the 90s, that was the time of Guns N' Roses, and we were hardcore fans, all of us.
Yeah.
And I still regret a lot and blame my parents that I was not allowed to go to the Appetite for Destruction tour, to the concert to Frankfurt. My friends were allowed to go with the father of one of them, and I couldn't go. And
there was no age limit to the concert.
Not if you had an adult with you.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we were already almost teenagers, so I think that wouldn't have been a problem. But they were a bit skeptic if that's a good idea. I mean, stadium concert, of course.
Yeah.
So I missed the live opportunity to see them. But we watched all the concert movies. I mean, they did great at that time videos.
That's right. MTV was just
and we watched all the stuff. Read the books about their scandals and stuff.
Of course.
And Matt Sorum, I mean the second drummer after Steven Adler left the band. He played this fantastic solos. At the time, it was still common to play elaborated drum solos during a live show. And I loved him on the drums on this huge set, standing there, and the whole stadium was listening and applauding. So he was the main reason to start learning drums. For real. So the Big Pigs and Matt Sorum.
Big Pigs, Matt Sorum probably a much better role model than Axl Rose.
Absolutely.
In life, I love the titles, Guns N' Roses, the Chinese democracy. That's really great.
I mean, that was this. This album was actually a myth, right? There was this saying that there is another Guns N' Roses album which wasn't released for years. And no one expected that it would be out at all. And then in the end, it came out.
Well, also Chinese democracy is a myth.
Also very true.
And then blues in Latin, Peter Herbolzheimer, which is a fantastic artist name. Probably the best artist name in the German language. Herbolzheimer. I saw this guy live in Helsinki in the late 80s, it must be. He was leading Umo big band and a really professional guy. And I can see from the Finnish guys in the big band who barely never smiled that they were having a good time with him. So he was an influence for you and big band music.
Yeah, I mean, he was an institution in the German jazz scene. So he was a bass trombone player himself,
of course,
which is obviously not the most popular instrument, probably. And he was a great arranger and composer. And he was very much into big band music, and he had a band playing in a very famous TV show, Bio Spanhof of Alfred Biolek. And And then at some point, he was the founding father of the German Jazz Youth Orchestra.
Yeah.
And like generations of musicians went through this orchestra. And he was a tough cookie. So I think there would be a controversial discussion within the German jazz scene. Some people didn't like him. I think he helped a lot of people in their career, etc.
Yeah.
So he was a strong character. And I was playing in a youth orchestra and a youth big band in the area of Heidelberg, Mannheim, where I'm coming from.
Okay.
And we had once a year a workshop with Peter.
Yeah.
And then played concerts with him. And he was my first encounter when I was 16. I had my first workshop with him.
Okay.
And I was very impressed by his way of being very precise.
Okay.
Also very harsh and direct when it comes to criticism.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked
So
him.
he could talk drummer's language. He could give you tips how to play this.
And everyone in the band. And he didn't give a shit about being nice. So he could have a big band play fortissimo and then just stop the band and tell, oh, third trumpet, this F is not
Sharp,
not the tuning is not right, whatever. I mean, he had fantastic ears and he was very spot on when it came to being precise, focused, etc. And he had a special way of humor, and some people liked it, some others not. But yeah, he had an aura, and he was important for German jazz.
Okay, then jazz, hip hop. We are going through the list. Lifesaver, Guru, Jazz Mataz. I never heard this before.
Yeah.
But you are into hip hop a lot, and
I mean
jazz hip hop.
Yeah, I'm into hip hop. I would say I'm totally genre open. I listened to so much stuff from electronic music to hip hop, jazz, classical, etc., and also middle of the road pop for sure. And I like when it's well made. I like the combination of genres. And Guru and the Jazz Mataz was it was a very nice approach of combining Afro-American music genres, which are so important for the artists in the US, in a good way. So it was not just merging genres to merge them and to be cool, and he did it in a musical way, and I really liked the approach and listening to the stuff. And it was also like a Trojan horse to bring jazz closer to my friends.
Who gave
a shit about what's jazz.
That's right. Yeah.
So in their impression, it was just people with a banjo and old man's music, etc.
Yeah, or Ornette Coleman.
and showing them there's something cool about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more an attitude than just a genre which has a distinct output of music.
What is happening in the jazz hip hop scene right now? Are there any interesting artists I should check out?
Yeah, I mean, there is one artist I'm working with, or we were working with as a label, Theo Croker, for example, the great American trumpeter.
Yeah.
And he has a close relation to hip hop and is working with some of the hip hop and R&B legends.
Okay.
Like he did collaborations with Jill Scott and others, and I think it's a natural musical world because it's all Afro-American based somehow, and it's original music coming from that part of the American society, right? So jazz was developed by Afro-American musicians, and same is true for hip hop and rap music. So, yeah.
Okay, the next one I'm very familiar with, Key Jarrett Trio, Bye Bye Blackbird. One of the greatest solos he ever played. Very mellow, very easy start in a solo. So It's not a secret that you at some point worked for ECM.
True.
We can openly talk about it,
Yeah.
even at this house.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows this trio, which is not operating anymore because Jared cannot play and Gary Peacock is dead.
Yeah.
But you met the guys.
I met them, yeah.
You have some first encounter info.
Yeah.
Can you tell some stories about them?
Yeah, I mean, of course, for me personally, I met the music of the trio way earlier. I was a big fan of the trio because I was totally into the way of playing of Jack Jeanette.
Yeah.
I love the freedom and I love the fact that there's always Gary as an anchor.
That's right.
And that they made something so unique and individual out of standard repertoire.
Yeah.
And I listened a lot, and of course, Bye Bye Blackbird. It's such an easy song.
It's like a children's song. Yeah.
And then how this trio plays around with it is fantastic, and especially this album.
Yeah.
And then way later, I got the opportunity to work for ECM, to be the label manager of ECM in Germany at Universal Music. And I worked very closely with Manfred and his team.
Yeah.
And I think it was at his 70th birthday that the Jared Trio played in Munich. And we went to the concert, of course. It was a fantastic concert. At that time, already Gary had a lot of problems with his ears. So the monitor was very close to his head. And it was touching to see how the trio now supported him to still be able to be on stage and play. So when he was the anchor during so many years, now they played quite straight ahead to make him comfortable. So Jack Jeanette played very different to what he was used to play.
What was his problem? With the hearing?
With the hearing.
Oh, okay. All right.
He was almost deaf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was really touching to see. And then, of course, Jared, in his very special way, no words about Manfred and his birthday, etc. And then after the second encore, the people were still raving about the concert. He came out, always sunglasses on, and the trio with him. And then he went to a microphone standing there on stage and looked into the audience and the two other guys behind him. And he was just saying, "Happy birthday, Manfred," and left the stage. It was nothing about the decades about their collaboration, etc., etc. And but still, I mean, I think this symbiosis of these two characters was so important for both of them, and also for jazz and music in general. How they worked together, Manfred and him, for so many years. And then we went backstage, and it was, like you expected. It was very nice and warm with Jack and with Gary, and Keith was there with his wife, and he was more like, guys, we have to leave soon, and we have to pack our stuff, etc.
Always stressed.
He was not really like getting into touch with people around there. But I mean, that's probably also understandable when you reach such a level. And he was all about music and not too much into people, I guess.
Especially not into people who take photographs during the concert
or filming.
Although I have heard a story that it was the same guy taking the photos. You know, it was hired by Keith. I've heard there are conspiracy theories that it was the same guy taking the photos, and he yelled for the same guy, but he knew. I don't know.
But I mean, being eccentric in a certain way is also, I mean, he's one of the greatest musicians ever in that field of improvised music, and you could tell a lot of story about eccentric personalities in other genres as well.
That's right.
And sometimes the stories and the gossip around gets more focused than the fact that I mean what he left us
That's right.
as a gift in a musical way. And yeah, I mean it was a great honor to meet them. And I would have never thought when I listened to this music when I was 16, 17 that I will ever be in the position to either work with Manfred and ECM or to meet
this guy. It's I think the magic of this trio, the real magic is that when you listen to it and when you see it's notated. I have seen many transcriptions of the solos, and they're very normal. I mean, it's very normal playing, mostly eighth notes and nothing extravaganza in the technical way, but in the written form. But when you hear it, there is this. I think aura is the right word.
This magic,
magic that cannot be put on paper.
No, and the interplay of the three of them.
That's right.
I mean, totally different characters, but a perfect match in that constellation. And that's fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Now, rest your voice for 1 minute. I have a word from sponsor. Genelec, leader in professional audio solutions, is proud to partner with the Algorytmi podcast. At Genelec, we blend art with science and engineering to deliver exceptional audio solutions that improve every listening experience. We are proud to support discussions that explore the fascinating world of music and beyond. You know Genelec.
Of course.
It's Finnish.
And all the studios with
studio speakers
Dolby Atmos
all around.
Dolby
Atmos is the new thing. Okay, let's change. Let's go from the list to you. Now, I think we are entitled at this point of podcast.
Absolutely.
Tell us what are all the operations you are running now? I mean, the ACT Music is one, and the agency is one, but there's many other things.
So
give the full picture. And
full picture.
And please continue. I put the curtain up because the sun
getting dark.
It's getting dark.
So yes, at the moment it's ACT, of course, which I'm running, and the ACT agency, which was founded 6 years ago and is now getting bigger and bigger.
It used to be Tambur, now ACT agency. Yes, yes.
And we're opening another chapter in fall because we will expand to the classical world, which is in my DNA, and it feels natural to include at least some parts of the classical instrumental world to our agency, and then another, you could say, profession of mine is for many years sharing experience with younger generations of artists. And I did that a lot for different art schools or music colleges and stuff.
This is mentoring
and teaching. And the longest collaboration I'm doing is probably the thing I'm doing longest in life so far is a summer academy, which is financed by a foundation in Hamburg, the Alfred Töpfer Foundation. And it started in 2008. It was meant in the beginning to focus on new classical concert formats, because at that time it was still all about the frontal setup we have for 150 years now, which we all consider as the classical concert. And to discuss that and develop new formats and break with the tradition, etc. And over the last 16 years, it turned more now into a summer academy, a summer course where we really focus on artistic identities and how to develop them or how to identify them on your own when you're a young artist. So it's a 2-week course, and in the beginning was meant mainly for classical musicians. it's opened up also to jazz musicians, and sometimes also directors and festival heads are joining us.
Okay.
And I'm doing that now for 16 years, and we have around 200 alumni. And a lot of them, I mean, you're playing with a quartet tonight, which was in the period when they founded their string quartet. They were scholars in our summer academy.
That's why they're so great. They went to your summer thing. Yeah, okay.
And we have several good examples of great musicians who came in an early stadium to us, and developed a great career afterwards. Not because of us, but because of this space there to think about identity, about program, about what makes us unique, etc. All the aspects the education in the music colleges is missing usually. And what unifies them is that they don't want to go to orchestra, and they want to be independent artists.
That's right.
And therefore you need certain tools to survive out there.
I totally agree with you that there's a great lack of the knowledge how to navigate in the music business, how to deal with audience, how to deal with the labels and agents in the music schools, simply because those teachers, they don't have that knowledge. There's nothing going on in their in that sense. They're not touring, they're not recording, at least most of them. So
not at all. And it would be too easy to say that it's about the business aspect only, because you can only do business when the musical core is clear, and you know what you want to do.
That's right.
What they learn there is to discuss with different mentors and with the group. It's always around 18 scholars. What they stand for personally, and to distillate the essence of what they want to do, which repertoire, what makes them unique, to check who are my competitors in a way.
That's right.
So if I play
from them, and
when I play viola, I should better know who else is in the market as a viola player.
That's right.
And what could be my repertoire, which I really love and makes me unique, instead of just playing the canon.
That's right.
That's especially in classical music a trap that everyone believes I should record the most important pieces out of the canon once in my life, but that was done a million times before.
That's right.
That's not really shaping your profile.
That's right.
And so it's a lot about
unless
music.
you're Glenn Gould.
Exactly. And so it's about that, finding your place in the market, and then on top they get in touch with a lot of different disciplines like graphic designers, photographers, text writing is very important. They have
That's right.
So and 2 years ago, on top of that academy, I founded, I started my own foundation with a business partner from Munich, who comes from the economical side of the markets. He has nothing to do with music himself, but he was totally into supporting young artists in their career. And he has a very close connection personally to music. He's a concert lover, classical and jazz music. And so we started a foundation, and we try to support individual artists for, let's say, a period of 3 years, to develop their first projects, like a debut album, and all they need.
And this is a clever way to really get to know these people and get to know, some people you might sign up to the label. Your days must be chaotic. Walk us through of one of your working days. So it must be like 1,000 emails, 1,000 phone calls, and endless things to do. Is that right? Can you ever relax?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I wouldn't agree to that it's endless, and it only works because I'm a very structured person. So, there's always a priority list of things which have to be done. and and yeah, I'm going through that every day. So there are things with more urgency and others which can wait for a while. And I have a wonderful team now around me. So of course, as you can imagine, when we grew and started new things like the agency and stuff, it was sometimes overwhelming because it was still just me, but then we started a completely new business. So I started managing the career of Michael Volney, which was just on top of the work I had for the label already.
That's right.
And now I'm in the luxurious position that we have probably the biggest ACT team we ever had. So
that's right.
From September onwards, it's like 12 people working in the office just here in Berlin. And I found great human beings to work with me, and I can give them a lot of the projects I did on my own before. And I also try to foster their personal relations with their artists. So I think it's essential that an agent in an agency has a very close relation to an artist.
Yes.
And ideally even closer than myself. So, and I trust them 100% because they have to do the communication in the everyday business.
That's right. Yeah.
But of course, I mean, in all the different fields I'm working in, I have to be present, and it's a lot about meetings, talking to my artists. That's probably the most important part. Being on the phone, even if there's not an album planned yet, just with our core artists to be in touch and to hear what are you up for, what are the plans, and then on a regular basis sitting together and speaking face to face.
That's right.
So I'm traveling a lot to see concerts, to meet artists, all their infrastructure. In your case, it's great to meet Pia from time to time, your Finnish agent.
Greetings to Pia.
And to discuss the planning, etc. Because I mean, it's a people's business, and you should be in touch and in connection with everyone. In the best possible way.
That's right. But very interesting line of work, and every day is different.
Every day is different. So there are routines. The day starts at 6:30 with my kids. They have to go to school. So there's also a family. And my wife, Franziska, she's also working for Doctors Without Borders. So she has a very serious and important job herself, but she is doing a lot on the family side and giving me the freedom to travel and follow my passion, and that's fantastic.
And I'm so glad to hear that you don't feel like the mouse running the wheel, that exhausting itself. That you find time to relax. I mean, it's important. Maybe your summer camp is one of those moments. It's still work,
it's another perspective. But I also had to learn that the hard way, and you probably know that as an artist yourself. So I always felt like I'm undestroyable, and I will never run out of energy. And right before Corona in 2019, I really reached a limit, and I had to learn that the hard way, that energy is not endless, and that you are also growing older. And I think this thunderstorm, which is just coming up here in Berlin, underlines this in a very impressive way.
I mean, I'm really worried about the lightning. Maybe I'll have to do it. Now we see your face. That's great.
Again.
Miles Davis was asked many times that, Mr. Davis, where is jazz going? And I think at some point his answer was, jazz is going to hell. Because he was tired of that question. Where do you think jazz is going?
Yeah, I think jazz, just as a term, is undefined like classical music as well. So it stands for such a long history of music that it's not really describing anything specific anymore. yes, it needs a certain amount of improvisation, I guess, and we all know where it comes from and the roots, and I think it's very important to know the roots and to respect the roots. And it's an Afro-American art form, but as it always has been in history of jazz, it's a continuous development, and new influences and new characters bringing up new ideas. So it's not like jazz was steady until the 80s or 90s and then something happened. It always evolved something new out of it. So Miles Davis is a perfect example for that, because he's probably still the artist who changed his profile and his artistic approach
and followed his time
almost every decade. He
Yeah.
changed his style, and the young generation of artists is socialized, grew up with all kinds of music.
Yeah.
And thanks to Spotify, YouTube, etc. It's all accessible all the time. I mean, that was very different in my youth.
Also
so
mine, yeah.
you had to spend a lot of money if you wanted to buy a record.
That's
so
right. Yeah.
All your pocket money went into music, and to discover a new genre, that was almost impossible. So you were listening to what was at home, what were your parents listening to, and then you bought the stuff which was popular at that time. But for example, if you were into whatever singer-songwriter, to then check out electronic music, that was an investment. And today you can easily go everywhere and check out stuff. And that has an influence on jazz as well. So I think improvised music will be always there, and in different ways of expression. And it's also there to influence other genres, because it gives different perspectives on music. So
a friend of mine in Finland said, I mean, he's not a fortune teller either, but he said that in 50 years, he thinks jazz is kind of melting into the classical world. That
parts of it. I mean, there's still jazz of today, which most people wouldn't consider as jazz. If you play it to them, it's like, yeah, that's cool, but it's not jazz. So I think there is, especially the Afro-American tradition, has in parts already today the status of classical music, right? So in the US, so if you see the orchestra of Lincoln Center, where Wynton Marsalis is keeping this tradition up, and that's more, I mean, the whole structure is more like our musical museums over here in Europe. When you go to Berlin Phil, you want to listen to Brahms. This year a lot of Bruckner, because it's 100 years. But that's this tradition keeping will play a role for sure.
Of course.
And then you will also have all these other colors of improvised music, from very avant-garde to the more popular stuff, combining hip-hop or electronic music with improvised music. And you can also find a lot of musicians with a jazz background in the mainstream popular music.
That's right.
I just learned, I taught that to the Vision String Quartet. There's a great string quartet from the US called the Attacca Quartet. And they do a lot of collaborations and also experimental stuff. But they also did all the string recordings for the new record of Billie Eilish.
That's right.
And I think that's interesting to see that learning the tradition of improvised music gives you tools to develop a lot individual original music.
That's right.
And that's great, because your senses are sharpened to look with a certain focus into things and take out what you want to take out and make it to your own language, etc. And that's very different to the classical music world, where it's still a lot more about interpretation than creating something new.
That's so true, and I think that the jazz education, if you combine classical and the jazz education, that is one of the most useful education you can get, because nobody knows where you end up. You might be a film score composer, or music for TV series, but when you know about the chords, harmonies, rhythms, you are you're fine.
And also about the tradition. I mean, we can't change that we're not born in America, and that we're not Afro-Americans. So we will never play the music they develop the way they play it themselves.
We can try.
We can try.
Yeah.
But I think it's also important to be aware of the European music tradition. As a European citizen, and to learn about the classical background,
of course,
and then to make something else out of it. And I think that was always fascinating for US American jazz artists to come to Europe and play with Europeans in a different way. I mean, we talked about Keith Jarrett and his European quartet, for example, and it's an endless list of
one of the
Europeans
greatest things
collaborating
ever.
with US artists, and then something new comes out of it. And this melting of traditions and creating something new out of it's, I think, a very important part of culture. And
the Armageddon has started here in Berlin. This might be the last conversation. This might be the last podcast ever. I turned the camera to outside to see that, and we also got a visit from Duke. Siggy's dog was here. We should acknowledge the
dogs are very important.
Dogs are very important. I used to have a boxer dog. Anyway, so now we know where the jazz is going. Where are the labels going? In 20 years, do we still need labels? Or is what is your?
I think I mean, I was asked that a lot, especially when I started in the so-called music industry.
So-called music industry.
Why I was joining this business, because it's almost dead, etc., and artists can do everything on their own today, etc. I think there's a big misunderstanding of the role a label can have, and I don't see labels just as a service platform releasing records. I mean, we're a producing label. That means we spend a lot of time in studios with artists, and we are, or at least in my case, I have the additional pair of ears, being on the other side of the window, and giving my feedback to takes, to the flow of a song, etc. So I'm more like a sparring partner, and that's exactly our role. I think everyone needs an opposite person giving honest feedback and sharing thoughts and developing strategies and stuff. And I think this role will never die out. It's very important. I always compare it to the book world. So a first manuscript will never go to market. So there's a long process of ping pong between
the editor,
the person, the lecturer at the publishing house, and the writer or the author. And then the final version evolves out of this relationship.
That's right.
And I think if you consider, which I do, an album as an individual art form in music, it's not just a key to play concerts. If you take it serious, it's very different artistically to work into a studio and to create something there than to be on stage. And if you see it as its own art form, then it's important to have someone working with you on that, because that's at least something I have to state after now, whatever, 16, 17 years in the music industry, and coming from stage myself after 10 years playing and producing music. Artists are not always their best critics themselves. So I think it's better to see it as an opportunity
Yeah,
to
yeah,
work
yeah.
with a label
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
than as something which is limiting you. I think it can be very, if it's the right opposite person, if you found the right opposite person, I think it can be very, it can give you a lot of positive input and
That's right.
inspiration
There
to work
used
on
to
your
be
music.
a line of great jazz producers and record producers, Irving Townsend, Theo Macero, the ones that Miles Davis used. But nowadays, and especially in Europe, I think most of the musicians they're not even thinking about hiring a producer. I'm talking about independent
Yeah.
artists, but I think it's really important. So, will you be the producer of the future ACT albums? I mean, you can't. You don't have
Yeah.
time to go to every session.
No, not to every session. It's really depending, as I said, it's really depending on the artist and what he or she wants.
Yeah.
And some of them really want to do it on their own or try it out how it is to be responsible, etc. And then there are others uh, who embrace to have someone with them in
Yeah.
the studio, getting feedback, etc. What I always try to do is to discuss the album idea
Yeah.
with everyone, no matter if they're self-producing or if there's another producer or myself in the studio. I think it needs, you have to feel this inner urge of this has to go on an album. If someone is just entering the office saying, oh, it's about time to do another record
Yeah.
because the last one is 1.5 years ago,
Yeah.
that's not a reason to produce an album or to record an album. There's
Yeah.
so much music out there, endless music out there. And if you want to stick out, it has to be convincing. And the first step is that you yourself are convinced of what you want to do and
That's
that
right.
you feel a need to do that and to bring it on an album.
Yeah.
And if I'm not convinced, I'm happy to discuss very controversially if it's really a good idea to record a new album now.
Yeah.
And I think it's important
Yeah.
to be straight in all those questions. And yes, I'm already quite a lot in studio. I just recorded with Jan Lundgren and the great Brazilian guitar player Yamando Costa, a duo record. I was involved in the record of Joel Lysarides,
Yeah.
Georgios Prokopiou, a fantastic bouzouki player.
Yes.
I went to studio with Four Wheel Drive for their second album. I'm co-producing more or less everything Michael Volney is doing,
Okay.
be it concerts or albums and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm involved wherever it's needed or asked for or wanted.
Yeah.
And I decided for myself that it's so important that we only work with artists who really want to work with us.
Yeah.
It's not like if someone just believes we can do the PR and do advertising and stuff like that. That's not us. So
That's
I think
right.
we have to keep this DNA Siggy established that we're involved in what we're doing and what we're putting out into the market because people, it's comparable with ECM as well. People expect something from us if they buy a newcomer without knowing him or her.
Yeah.
And they trust us that our selection of artists is meaningful. And therefore the trust between the artist and us has to be meaningful as well.
Yeah.
So,
And there are many, many bands, many artists who would love to sign with ACT. And what is your tip for them? And even I've been asked, your telephone number or email, at least 5 times a year, and I always tell that don't send the ready master, the mixed and mastered tape for them. It doesn't work like that.
that's true.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
but many people think that when they send you the ready product and you just reply that, oh, we would love to put this out, but it doesn't work like that. No.
No, usually not. We listen to everything.
Yeah.
More or less. That's our ambition, to listen to all the requests we get.
Yeah.
Because every now and then we discover some something or someone, some music in those send outs. I mean, they send it out to 100 labels, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we listen to it, and for example, Nezrin Belmok was one of those artists.
Okay.
Just sending it to our info at ACT Music address, and then we listen to it. And
so every week you even listen the new stuff.
Yeah, not myself, not always myself, but there are others like Michael Gottfried involved. Then
Gottfried
filtering
will
stuff.
be on this podcast next week. We'll record. Yeah.
So filtering a little bit what is what could be meant for us and what's not. I mean, there's some not general rules, but at least some aspects which are important for us. So we hardly ever sign established artists. It's mainly about young and upcoming artists, and where we feel we can be of help to develop their career further. And then, of course, we have our long-term relationships with many artists, and I'm very happy about that. And
that will continue.
And to continue that. But Siggy started something in his very own way, a producing label which is wide open when it comes to different styles or interpretations of jazz or the word jazz. All the artists and records are somehow unified through improvisation. So improvisation is a common thread somehow in everything we are doing, which doesn't exclude the fact that we might start some classical recordings sometime soon.
Yeah, so I've been hearing about this. Yeah.
So same, which is true for the agency.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in giving a contemporary classical music a place in the roster, which is identifiable for the ACT lovers, so that there's no confusion. Okay, I bought Iro Rantala, but why is he now playing contemporary piano music with an orchestra? I expected a new Finnish calendar or stuff like that. So I think it's nice to have a distinction there so that it's identifiable. Okay, that's probably more into classical music world. This is what we know about ACT. That's jazz. Jazz related.
I'm really looking forward to your classical series. That's a really interesting new opening. Before the second camera gets too hot, let's go to the closing questions. Has the world become a better or worse place during your lifetime?
I think it has become a different place. And it's for sure a way more complex place. So when I grew up, of course, everything was safe in terms of the financial infrastructure, and it was a growing country, and the economy was growing. And then there was the unification in Germany, etc. And today, it's not like you have a crisis and then this crisis gets solved and then another crisis appears. Today, it's more like continental plates, it's overlapping. There are a lot of crises at the same time, and it's way more complex to understand how the world is running.
It is,
And it's frustrating to see sometimes that, at least to my understanding, the human race didn't really develop further since we left the holds like some 100,000 years ago. It's still about power, influence, money,
humans killing other humans,
etc. Humans killing other humans. So we are great in developing technology and make progress there, but we're not that good in developing new society models which are more embracing for everyone, and not just standing on the shoulders of poorer people in the world who are suffering. So it has become a more complex place, and we have to try to do our contribution with art and culture to somehow help making people not losing their relation to each other completely, and
That's
to,
right. Yeah,
to build platforms
helps
where you
definitely.
can be in touch with each other. Yeah.
What really pisses you off?
What really pisses me off is arrogance and being selfish. So if every success is usually based on a lot of different shoulders, and if people achieve something which is great, and then they start to change their attitude towards others, etc., that really pisses me off.
Okay.
I think that's something I really can't stand. And of course I can't stand any form of fascism and excluding attitudes, like
What happens to you after you die?
To me personally, probably not much. I will be probably burned and go to ashes. But still, I believe, not in a religious way, but in a way related to our actions through life, that you have a chance to survive for a certain period of time in the hearts of other people. So be it my children or be it artists or audiences I worked with, and
the albums you produce,
and the albums I produce. And I think that's a real privilege, to be able to work in that field. That there might be something which survives me, even if it's just a memory. And I like that idea. But when I die, there's probably just a black full stop, and that's it.
That's it. And that goes for this podcast as well. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, and I wish you happy summer and good success in your operations.
Same to you, and looking forward to the concert tonight.